You're finally drifting off after a long day. Everything goes quiet, and then your body violently jerks you awake like someone just shoved you off a building. This isn't a glitch, it's a feature. That terrifying jolt has a name, a hypnic jerk. And tonight, roughly 7 out of 10 people watching this will experience one. What your body is doing in that moment is far more complex and far more ancient than you think. This is the story of a reflex that's been protecting humans for millions of years, and why modern life is making it worse. Let's set the scene. A 32-year-old software developer, let's call her Sarah, goes to bed at 1 a.m. after 6 hours of coding, 3 espressos, and an hour of doom scrolling. She's exhausted. Within minutes, she starts to drift off. Then her leg kicks. Hard. She jolts awake, heart pounding. She settles back in, starts drifting again. Another jerk, this time her whole torso. She's wide awake now, frustrated, anxious, which of course makes falling asleep even harder. By the time she finally passes out, it's nearly 3 a.m. What happened to Sarah isn't rare. It isn't a disorder. But the combination of factors that made her night miserable is something almost everyone is replicating without realizing it. And to understand why, we need to go inside the brain at the exact moment sleep begins. Every night, your brain performs one of its most delicate operations, the transition from waking to sleeping. 2 systems are involved. The reticular activating system, or RAS, is your brain's on switch. It keeps you alert, responsive, aware of your environment. On the other side is the ventrolateral preoptic nucleus, the VLPO, which is your brain's off switch. It promotes sleep by inhibiting the RAS. When everything works perfectly, the VLPO gradually overpowers the RAS. You feel drowsy, your thoughts blur, and you slide gently into stage 1 sleep. But this handoff isn't always smooth. Sometimes both systems are active at the same time, and in that neurological no man's land, something interesting happens. Your motor neurons, the ones that control muscle movement, receive a confusing signal. Part of the brain says, relax. Another part says, stay alert. The result is a sudden, involuntary muscle contraction, a hypnic jerk. But what's really going on is even deeper than a simple signal mix-up. There's an evolutionary reason this reflex exists, and it reveals something profound about what your brain is afraid of. Millions of years ago, our ancestors didn't sleep in beds. They slept in trees, and when you're 30 feet above the ground on a branch, your muscles relaxing suddenly isn't peaceful. It's potentially fatal. So, the brain developed a fail-safe. When muscle tone dropped too quickly during the transition to sleep, the brain would fire a jolt, a wake-up call, a last-ditch grab-the-branch signal. And here's the remarkable part. Even though we haven't slept in trees for a very long time, the reflex is still there. Evolution doesn't remove things that don't cause harm. It just stops prioritizing them. So every time you jerk awake at night, your brain is essentially running a millions-year-old software patch designed for a problem that no longer exists. But wait, if this is just an outdated reflex, why does it happen more to some people than others? And why is it getting more common? The answer has everything to do with how we live now. Remember Sarah from the beginning? Let's revisit her night through the lens of what we now know. 3 espressos. Caffeine blocks adenosine receptors. Adenosine is what builds sleep pressure throughout the day. So when Sarah's brain finally starts the transition to sleep, it happens too fast. The caffeine wears off and sleep rushes in like a dam breaking. Abrupt transition, guaranteed jerk, 6 hours of coding. Prolonged mental stress elevates cortisol, which keeps the reticular activating system, the brain's on switch, running hot. Even when the VLPO tries to shut things down, the RAS fights back harder than normal. More conflict between the 2 systems means a messier handoff. 1 hour of doom scrolling in bed, this one is particularly damaging. The rapid visual stimulation and emotional micro-reactions from scrolling keep your motor cortex primed. Blue light suppresses melatonin, and the constant context switching prevents the gradual wind down your brain needs for a smooth entry into sleep. Every single factor in Sarah's evening made the transition more abrupt, and every abrupt transition is an opportunity for a hypnic jerk. She didn't have a sleep disorder. She had a lifestyle pattern that was practically engineered to trigger this reflex. Here's where this gets really fascinating. Many people don't just twitch, they experience a vivid sensation alongside it. The feeling of falling off a ledge, tripping on a staircase, being pushed from behind. Some people even hear a loud bang or see a flash of light. These are called hypnagogic hallucinations, and they happen because of the rolling blackout effect of sleep onset. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational thinking part, shuts down first. Then, sensory processing dims. But your motor system and your visual cortex can still be partially active. So when a random motor neuron fires and causes a jerk, your half-asleep brain tries to construct a story around it. It feels the jerk and thinks, "I must be falling." It generates a visual to match. This is the same mechanism that creates dreams, just happening at the wrong time. Your brain is already starting to dream before you're fully asleep, and the jerk pulls you back into consciousness, right in the middle of a half-formed hallucination. That's why it feels so real. For a fraction of a second, you genuinely believed you were falling, because the part of your brain that would have told you that's not real was already offline. So after all of this, what do you actually do about it? The science points to one core principle: smooth the transition. Everything that makes sleep onset more gradual reduces hypnic jerks. Cut caffeine by early afternoon, not to sleep better in general, specifically because a gentler adenosine buildup means a less abrupt transition into sleep. Create a buffer zone before bed, 30 minutes minimum where you're not stimulating your motor cortex or visual system. Reading a physical book works. Staring at a screen does not. Maintain a consistent sleep schedule. When your circadian rhythm is dialed in, your brain gets better at the handoff. It's like any skill. The more consistently it practices, the smoother it gets. And manage your stress before bed, not in bed. If you're lying there processing the day's anxieties, your RAS stays fired up, setting the stage for a turbulent transition. Sarah made 4 changes. She stopped caffeine after noon. She put her phone in another room at 10 p.m. She started reading before bed, and she kept the same bedtime for 3 weeks straight. Her hypnic jerks went from nightly to maybe once a week, not because the reflex went away, it can't, but because the transition got smoother. Every night, your brain performs this incredible balancing act, powering down consciousness while keeping you alive. The hypnic jerk is what happens when that balancing act wobbles. It's not a malfunction, it's a relic of survival, amplified by a modern world that pushes our brains harder and faster than they were designed to go. The good news is that once you understand the mechanism, you have real power to change it.